Welcome to The Brew, where we meet people from all walks of life who share their amazing stories. This is episode 6, James Pittar, a blind ultramarathon swimmer and a gentle giant whose optimism and determination got him through swimming the English Channel. And as he told me, his only goal was to just swim straight. Here's James. I am very lucky, and we've just made a hot chocolate, so we've enjoyed that part of the brew. Mr. James Pittar, welcome.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit very briefly about you. You're an ultramarathon swimmer, but is that how you describe yourself?
I would describe myself, as an open water swimmer, an ultra open water swimmer. I've done lots of swims. I started originally in the swimming pool events, which was, I found very easily on that I was never going to be very good at sprinting, and 400 metres was the longest event in the Paralympics for the blind. So I just went into open water swimming. I just loved it. I loved how it didn't matter how quick or slow you were. I was a one-paced slow swimmer, and I just loved, the thing I loved the most, and I still do to this day, is getting out there in the ocean and getting hit by waves and currents and sand and occasional blue ball I don't really like, but it happens. And just the amount of different things happens every time you go out there. I think marathon swimming's a bit like yachting, like the Sydney to Hobart. It's a simple sport. It's just about in a boat, in the ocean, or it's about you just swimming. You never get the same conditions every time, and I just love being out there. Okay, so
James, I'm going to pick up on one word. Simple.
Mm-hmm.
You think it's a simple sport?
It's a simple sport in that you get in a pair of Speedos, cap and goggles.
Yeah.
Obviously for me it's a bit more not simple because I need someone to kite for me and blow the whistles. And I'll explain that for me to be able to swim in the ocean I need someone beside me blowing the whistles, and we have... Because
in case any of our listeners haven't picked up yet, you're blind.
That's correct, yeah, I'm blind.
You are really blind.
Correct.
You can't see anything.
That's right, yes.
So, and you love open water swimming,
mm-hmm.
and you don't know where you're going.
No, and that sometimes is the beauty, because that's your good old mate's problem on the boat or on the kayak. and
Delegation.
And at the end of a long swim like the English Channel or Catalina Channel, my team is more distraught than I am, because they're doing calculations, they're doing kick counts and stroke counts and encouraging you along and feeding you and water feeding you and trying to get you through the bad bits. They're the ones who feel like they're the ones who are probably worse at the end than you are. I mean, I'm physically beaten at the end, but you're not like, my coach, she stood on the boat for 14 hours in the English Channel, and she was like swaying at the end when we got back on land.
How do you know she was swaying?
Because I was holding onto her shoulders, and we were going from left to right, and I'm thinking she was still swaying the next day, and they're the things you don't think about, because all I do is get in there and swim, and I can't tell if the great the White Cliffs of Dover are still there, because I can't see them, and that's a good thing. Psychology is a good thing, because you don't know where you are, and you don't have to worry about where you just keep on swimming. That's your group's problem. And how they then get round to encourage you or psychologically get you through a particular time is what they've got to do. And one of my mates in the Martha's Vineyard swim, from Martha's Vineyard to Nantucket Island, he got in and it was so shallow that he pretended he was swimming, but he was actually walking along and flapping his arms.
Was your mate blind as well?
No, but he knew I couldn't see what he was doing, so it was fine.
He was fibbing.
Yeah, he told me that afterwards, but it did the job.
That's not very cool.
No, I thought it was quite funny, actually. I thought it was, that's exactly what you should be doing. He was in there having a go, he was beside me, and he was having a bit of a laugh. We were all having a laugh, and I think, to me, it was, as I said, to me, I just get out there and swim, and, that's what I enjoy. You've got the wind with you one way and not the next, or the wind at different angles all the time, and and you have to use the wind. Well, I do have to use the wind, because that's also directional. If you're swimming into the wind and you're swimming into it and you can feel it, then you're swimming in a straight line, which for me is, like you might say this swim with the English Channel is 45 k's, but I'll probably swim 50 because I don't swim in a straight line. I swerve all over the place. I'm hearing a whistle probably once every 3 times a minute.
So you've got someone in a kayak near you with a blowing a whistle to try and keep you straight?
Correct, yes. So it's like one long blast to veer left and 2 short ones to veer right. And then we have a bit of a joke that 3 long blasts is for a shark, but I haven't heard the 3 long blasts yet, so that's quite good.
So at that point, should there be 3 long blasts signalling that there is a shark near you?
Correct, yes.
What is the definition of a shark near you, James?
Well, only once have I
how near?
Well, I think within sight distance for everyone else, and sometimes...
So do they run and paddle away faster, or is the object to save you?
I think the object is to save me, and it did happen once in an event from Manly Wharf through the Heads and into Manly Beach, where I was ready for a drink break and my mate said, no, on the jet ski, no questions, 2 8-foot tiger sharks, swim cancelled, don't ask any questions, on you go. And that was it.
And you did heed that advice and not ask questions?
Yes. No, I didn't ask. I was on the jet ski and in the IRB and around to Manly Beach, and he said, right, well done.
So we're going to backtrack a little bit now.
Sure.
Your parents.
Yes.
What do they do for a living?
Well, my mum and dad, you'll find this ironic. My dad he's now retired 5 years ago, was an ophthalmologist surgeon for 47 years. So he's an eye doctor. And my mother was an orthoptist who treated people with eye problems. So yes, they did well to have a blind son, didn't they? So yes.
But I'm sure it was a tough experience for them. Absolutely,
very tough for Dad, especially my eye disease, which is retinitis pigmentosa, which is a disease that destroys the retina, the back part of the eye, and for them it was hard because it's mainly a hereditary style disease, and therefore you need to have both of you have the particular gene for it to happen. So yeah, it's about a 1 in 5,000 chance for that to happen, and that happened. So.
But you were born sighted.
That is correct. Yes, I was. Yes.
And you had an early childhood. In fact, you're in high school, and everything is normal.
That is correct. Yes. Yes, I went to the Shaw School at North Sydney.
And then, was it a gradual situation? How did you suddenly start to walk a path of where you were losing your sight?
I started firstly not being able to see at night time, which is always the first start of it, or the first signs of retinitis pigmentosa is you don't have any night vision. For those who don't know, the main thing about retinitis pigmentosa is for those who have stable sight or over-body sight, that the rods and cones, when they go, they regenerate. Well, mine don't. So eventually you lose all the rods and cones and you destroy the retina. So that was the first sign of things. I suppose it would have been about 10 when that first started happening, 10, 11. I'm trying to think back to, yeah, that'd be about right. And then...
So did you make a comment to your parents that I can't see at night?
Yeah, I think I did. And I think that they were probably didn't tell me much because they probably knew where that might end up, and I can understand them both being in the eye business. And then I just started finding it harder to read things at school. I probably was in second form, third form. Third form was when it really started going downhill. That was the real start of the bad time, when it started going downhill, I suppose.
And was that a rapid deterioration at that point?
It became rapid because it sort of overnight-ish sort of started going down rapidly downhill. So yes it did. And I started using what they call like reading machines that would blow the print up of textbooks, and started using them at that point in time when I still had some eyesight. So it was like in the HSC I still wrote exams, but I did them under like a reading machine which blew up the print while you were writing. So I still had some eyesight to do the high school certificate. But
so you finished high school?
I did, yeah, year 12. I was lucky enough to get through and survive. I think that's all year. I still remember my mate at school after the first week of year 11, and I thought that took so much out of me. And he said, yeah, mate, 1 week down, 79 to go.
Well, thanks for that.
And I thought, that's a very comforting statement. I don't need you to tell me that information. And I think that was probably, year 12 for me was all about just trying to survive. I don't think... I knew I wouldn't go to uni, but I just wanted to make sure I did justice to my parents' money and time that they put into me. So I think it was probably a bit more pressure as well, but I got there in the end, and that was the main focus. Yep.
Completing your HSC,
yep.
How are your parents dealing with you, and how are you dealing with your parents?
But when I started losing about 16, I probably was not a nice person to my parents.
Yep.
I think for them, they obviously could understand the ramifications because they're in that type of business and the eyes and knew what it was all about. My dad was fantastic in relation to trying to find any machine that could be of assistance, different reading machines, different appliances. He was just magnificent in finding different things. And I think the times he took me to different things, technology type things that were going at that point in time at the Blind Society and so forth around was magnificent. I think he really poured a lot of time into that. It was just getting through that process, and I think that we managed it well in the end. And I lived with my parents till I was 35, until I met my wife. And I think we had a really good relationship. That first 2 or 3 years was
with
very
your mum
difficult.
too.
Yes, with my mum, and I think, but and mum was always very, I suppose, philosophical. She came from England, she was born in Kenya, but lived a lot of life in Scotland and England. And I remember her saying to me, "You're very lucky because you live in a country where you have a lot of sunlight." And sunlight was important to when I had some eyesight. She said, "You're lucky. If you're in England, you'd probably be having 6 months of, not being able to use the sun as a help, when you're reading things and so forth." So I remember that as a really good thing to come back to me, was that, yes, how fortunate I was to live in Australia where you do have good conditions. It's not overcast and dreary for 6-8 months of the year. And I think that was... So she was very good, and she was always there and around and always very protective, I think.
As any parent is wanting to do to make sure that you're... Yeah.
Right.
So you finished high school.
Mm-hmm.
You're starting to be maybe not so bratty to your parents. You're leaving some of those teenage years behind you.
Yeah.
You said you were never going to go to uni.
Yep.
You never went to uni?
I never went to uni. I went and did a training course at a place that probably is still no longer, is probably not there, called NADAO, which used to stand for National Association of Disabled Office Workers. Now, it may still well be there in St Leonard's. I don't know that. That was in 1988, so I don't know about that. But I went there for 6 months.
Yeah.
And then I applied for a couple of jobs. And then in October of 88, I did the public service entrance exam, which you don't do any longer. You did in those days. And got an interview for the tax office in Chatswood and joined them, and have been gainfully employed in the tax office ever since.
As a small business owner, I have to say, of course, it's a great organisation, the Australian Taxation
Absolutely.
Office. But it really is because of their opportunities that they afford across gender and any form of disability.
Oh, absolutely.
It's
true.
an even playing field, right?
It is, absolutely. And you look at the people, like I've just become, in the last 4 months, the Disability Advisor Officer for our Sydney site, which has 1,200 staff. And we have about 30 people who are disabled. And I think we gather this term of a person being disabled, but it's more, people think of people with disabilities as the ones they can see.
Yep.
Like myself with a white cane, person in a wheelchair, person with one leg or one arm. It's the people who have the cerebral palsies or the depression, who you see them there and go, yeah, nothing wrong with that person. And I think that's a very hard thing, and to have an invisible disability, as we call it, and we've got a few of them in our office, that you've just got to be able to work around that and be as managers. And this year we had the International Day for People with Disabilities theme in our office was, building the relationships and having the conversation, and how important that is to someone who may have an invisible disability, who doesn't want to disclose that to the world, but needs to sort of say that to their manager or staff to be able to convey certain things to help them along in their workloads.
In order for them to be as productive as possible.
Correct.
Both for their own self-esteem and for the productivity of the workplace.
Absolutely right. Absolutely.
Because I don't think anyone with a disability wants to not perform as best as what they can, because that gives them that confidence that I am capable of being as much of an active member here in this workplace as anyone else.
Correct. And I think people with disabilities probably work harder at times because they have to, because you have your times where you got to work around things that happen, and you have software problems like software things like I do, obviously, that need to be able to read screens and work with. It works with some things and doesn't work with others, and it's very difficult if people don't know that. And we brought in this year a thing where on the systems between your manager and a person with a disability. You can say the systems that you have and how they work and how they don't work, and that's a really good thing. It notifies to certain people that you want to give to them, to show them that your disability, you can do the work. It's just that you need reasonable adjustment for it to work.
And let's face it, we all need some help at some point or another.
Absolutely.
Even all those of us who are able-bodied and can see, stuff still goes wrong for us.
Oh, absolutely. And people who are in businesses who you have years where things go well, go badly, and sometimes that might be something that's totally out of your control. You have a stock market crash, or you're reliant upon
Donald Trump gets elected in America.
That's absolutely right. How you get on with those, even people who are able-bodied, and how you get along as a group, because morale, I think, in a business is a really big thing. Even in a group of people, you need to have good morale, you need to have good chemistry between people. You've got to make sure that when you walk in that door that you want to be there. I think that's important for employers and employees.
So do you think some I mean, I've seen a couple of wheelchair basketball games.
Yep.
And they're brutal.
Yeah.
There is certainly no sympathy for each other. I'm not sure they make many friends on that court. Do you think disabled sports are harsher because you just can? I mean, you're not going to feel sorry for each other, right?
No, I think you watch that the what is it, the quad rugby in the Paralympics, and you think, crikey, they must end up.
Like, if you weren't injured before, you're going to be injured after, right? Hi everyone, sorry to interrupt and just jump in here quite randomly. We're taking a quick break just to make sure that we let you know. Like us on Facebook, The Brew. Check out our videos with our brew guests making their favourite coffee behind the machine, or at least trying to. And don't forget to subscribe and review us on iTunes, and tell your friends. The Brew. We might make some time and get back to our guest. So when did your drive to be able to go into the open ocean and get pounded by waves and sand and bitten by blue bottles, when did you discover that need to fulfill?
I did a lot of swimming pool competitions for the blind, and it just didn't, for me, I was not going to be a sprinter, and I realised that. It took me 6-7 years to work that one out, but I got involved in doing a swim from Palm Beach to Whale Beach, and just loved it, and thought, this is fantastic. And conditions were great. Can't say they weren't. They were great. Not much waves. It was a great day, but it was from there. And then I went to do a swim in Narrabeen Lakes, and it wasn't very pretty, I have to say. It was after I had a national pollution spill, and we still swam. But it was from there really. And I met Des Renford, and he's now passed away. He attempted the English Channel 19 times and completed it 19 times.
Oh.
And
wow.
He did that. His first attempt was when he was 43 years of age. And he did it and what was at the age of 53 in 1980, he swam the English Channel 3 times in 11 days, which I think is one of the great feats of all time.
How long did it take him to swim it once?
About between 12 and 13 hours each time.
So it's a pretty big day.
It's a big day, and to then think that you can get out and 4 days later and swim it again, and there's no way that you can get 11 fine days in England.
No,
that's just impossible. So he has to have one bad day of weather somewhere in the 3 swims, and I just think, what an incredible at the age of 53, and in 1980 you didn't have things such as doctors and physios and dietary people like I had all those people to my aids. He just went out there and did it every time, and I went. I said to someone, I was lucky enough to do it once, but there's no way I could have backed up 4 days later. Not a hope in Hades. And I just think, so I met Des Renford, and I met him and thought, I want to swim the English Channel, but I didn't tell anyone because I knew that would create lots of dramas, that a blind person saying he wants to swim the English Channel. And I go back to 1997 because at the same time a mate of mine I met who's from America, Eric Wiehenmayer, I don't know if that's the way it's pronounced, said he's blind, said I want to swim. He wanted to climb Mount Everest, and everyone thought, oh, this bloke's mad. So the two mad blind people were trying to do extreme things, and we both completed it. And I think that
so
was...
he climbed Mount Everest?
Yeah, in 2001, and I did it in 1998. And I think back to when I always said I want to swim the English Channel, and I knew that would create a lot of laughter, people saying that's just impossible. And that's a dream you have, and like everyone in business has dreams. But I go back to, 2015 Melbourne Cup, when I hear Michelle Payne say, when I was 6 and 7, I said at school, I'm going to win the Melbourne Cup. And everyone laughed at her. And I thought, I can relate to that, even though I was 25 years older than that. I could relate to that thought that you make a statement like, I'm going to swim the English Channel. And then you go out there and do it. And as she did, she won the Melbourne Cup. And, I probably wasn't as brazen as her at the end. Or probably didn't have the courage enough to say, which she rightfully said at the end of the race, which was great. And I think that was I got some familiarities from that, because it was about someone says this, I want to win the Melbourne Cup, or I want to swim the English Channel, or it may well be I want to run my own business, and people may say, well, it's not going to happen. Well, why isn't it going to happen? Why can't someone, a female jockey, win the Melbourne Cup?
It was always going to be much harder for you than other swimmers who can see.
Oh, absolutely.
So
absolutely.
Why didn't that faze you?
I think it didn't.
Did it?
It fazed me because I knew how difficult the challenge was going to be. And it also was fazed because I knew a lot of people would say, it's not going to happen, it's not going to work. So you had that fear of... Someone said, did you have a fear of failure? And I say, I had a fear of failure because I knew people would say, I told you so, that you wouldn't do it. So maybe it was a fear of failure in my own mind. But I had lots of moments about it, and, you would always wake up, or you'd be in training and you'd be thinking, wow, this is a challenge. And I say these things, but, and when I think, I hope it takes me 14 hours, and I think, 14 hours, and I think...
Of swimming in the English Channel.
That is correct.
In
the
conditions,
cold.
yeah.
That's right. And you think, and you've got boats from France
It's not Palm Beach to Whale Beach.
No, it's not. Got one of the biggest shipping channels in the world, with
and they're
France,
not really going to
Belgium.
care.
They don't care. They have right of
whether
way.
you can see or not.
That is exactly right.
Or why you're even there.
Correct. So you're dealing with this problem, and it's probably that was your dream. I'm going to swim the English Channel, but it's only when you looked at it and thought this is going to take 14 hours if I swim really, really well, and it's all about, wow, this is enormous, to knowing that you're relying upon the weather in the day, the temperature of the water, every boat out there doing the right thing for you. It was an enormous challenge. And then the other thing that you have is in the English Channel, with a lot of the swims around the world, is you can't touch anyone on board the boat or the boat itself, because that's deemed as assistance and that disqualifies you. So you then have the next problem of, how do we feed this bloke who can't see? We can't chuck him a carbohydrate gel.
No, because you're not a dolphin, right?
Correct.
You're not going to retrieve.
Correct. We can't chuck him the water bottle. We can't, what are we going to do with this bloke? And it's, there's the story about Alison Streeter, the great English swimmer, who's swum the English Channel 43 times.
But sighted.
Sighted, yeah. Right. And she was a banker at the time, and she had to make some work decision. They threw her the mobile phone, she caught it and she said yes, and threw it back and kept on swimming. Well, that's easy to do if you can see. I wasn't making any banking decisions in the English Channel, but
no, you were just trying to feed yourself and keep yourself alive.
That's correct.
Right.
So we used this swimming pool like device thing that had ropes on the end, and my group would lower it every hour for the first 4 hours and every half an hour after that. And one rope had the water bottle and one had an open-ended syringe, which had carbohydrate gel in it. So it's a bit like you're out there with your the steamer there, the nozzle coming down and in goes the milk type thing, or the squeeze of the chocolate. That combined with seawater is just a beautiful...
Oh, extra yum.
Yep, and we tried different combinations of what would work like carbohydrate. We even tried one night in my pool at home eating baby food. That didn't last particularly long. That didn't
another enticing form of nourishment.
But banana and carrot baby food didn't really hit the spot. No. So yeah, there were lots of those little problems that major problems maybe, that you had to deal with along the way. They were always very encouraging. I do remember at the 12-hour mark in the English Channel when my coach said, "You need to sprint." Sprint at 12 hours? What do you think I've been doing? And I didn't realise, but if I sprinted in the next 500 metres and got past the sandbank, it was then if I missed the sandbank, it was another 7 hours because the tide was changing. So I didn't know that, and I didn't want to know that. So, psychology is a big part of the game, and to a blind person, you've got to make sure you keep the person focused, because for me, if I lose concentration, it means you swerve more and you're swimming more. So concentration for me and hearing the whistles is imperative, because you don't, the quickest straight line between two is a straight line between 2 points. Don't swerve because it's more swimming. And so that's really important. You need to be psychological about it, and you need to just keep you moving in that direction. And sometimes it's just taking your mind away from what you're doing.
So you're incredibly focused and mentally tough.
Mm-hmm.
And you need a team to get you there, because you can't just rock up and do it yourself. That's never going to happen by yourself.
That's right. And the thing that I have found for me, that I found it probably a shame in my swimming career, is I get the kudos for doing the swim, but I go, yeah, but my team should get the kudos as well, because the swim, I would never do the swim if I didn't have someone there blowing a whistle, kayaking, or on a boat. It wouldn't, or feeding me. It wouldn't happen.
You're 35 years old,
yes,
if we go back in time, and you're still living at home.
Yes.
Single.
Yes, correct.
But not for long.
Not for long, no. One of my good mates at school enticed me onto I don't know, we should promote this, but a dating website.
Right. And you went on a dating website.
I did, yes. And
another brave move that many of us who are sighted wouldn't do because we're scared.
Well, and I think there were some advantages not being able to see. You're just listening to profiles and didn't worry about the pictures. You couldn't see them anyway.
Well, you're not worried if they put a picture up that's like 10 years ago.
Well, the thing was, my mate, the picture he put up of me was probably not the best photo, which was me at the end of the Manhattan swim in swimmer's cap and goggles after swimming in the Manhattan sewage system for 8 hours.
Yuck.
Not the most brilliant photo to have on the system, but yeah. So I in 2004 I met my wife, and we got married in April of 2005.
So it was a rather quick courtship.
Yes.
and then you have a child.
Yes, we have a child.
So you have a daughter.
Yep, she was born in March of 2007, and I think that was another. I found that's to me that was always going to be a very tough experience. I was very nervous because of knowing how to handle a child and when you can't see.
All those normal dad things that you can't see.
Yeah, how you carry a child, how you do nappy changing, he says. Yes. When the child gets sick, how you give medicine to a child. Yes, so those things, how you dress a child. I mean, when Annika was 3 or 4, Mum was away and I had to take her to a birthday party. And I had to dress her.
Did she have the dress on the right way round?
Oh, the colour combination was the worst in history. Different coloured socks, pink and blue, and
which she would have thought was fun.
Yes, and my wife, who then came to the party after we had got there, went, "What were you thinking?" I said, "Well, it fitted, didn't it?"
Did you say, "I can't see"? No. Do you remember that?
I don't think that. No, she just had a bit of a laugh. I don't think she didn't really concern her. But it was like, well, I got her here. That was my brief, wasn't it? Yes.
But she's nearly 10 now.
She's 10 next March. Yeah.
She's already a swimmer.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And she's competing.
Oh yeah, she does. She's done a few pool swims where she's done 3Ks. And did the Coogee Bay swim a couple of weeks ago. And
so she's a chip off the old block.
Yes.
So how soon before she's doing the English Channel?
Oh, yeah. You're trying to make me do what I did to my own parents, yes. And
I think that's inevitable, James.
Well, I think someone said that's going to come back to haunt you one day. Yes. I said, yeah, probably is. And
it doesn't seem to faze you at all.
No, because I think that I've been very fortunate in my life and always having people around me.
You say fortunate.
Yeah.
You say fortunate, James. How can you say that?
I can say fortunate because I've been lucky enough to be involved in lots of different charities, and when you go to when I've been involved in things such as going to Youth Off the Streets functions, or being invited to be part of the Far West School at Manly, which I did for about 8 years, and seeing kids who have come to Manly Beach, who coming from far western New South Wales, and tough times in the bush, and haven't had much schooling because of where they are, or being involved in the Fred Hollows Foundation, which I have for 10, 11 years, and seeing somebody in Pakistan where the young daughter has to look after the blind mother, father, grandfather, and when Fred Hollows come along and provides the clinic and gives the grandparent the sight back, that the girl can now go off to school and get an education, and I just think that I've held a full-time job for 28 years, and when you consider that of the 91% of people blind who are working age, only 20% have a job, and there are things like that you see that I'm blind, and that's something, but there are other people who are much worse off, and you go, and sometimes it's good because you might have a really bad day at work or home or wherever, and then you see someone has a much worse disability than you do, and it gives you a bit of kick in the pants sometimes, which I think I need occasionally, and I think that I just think that I get up and I go for a swim in a pool where people like me and swim with me, and I go to work and be with people who understand who I am, and then go home to a loving family who support me and allow me to go for a swim every morning. And I always think that's fortunate that my wife, does all the things with my daughter to get her ready for school while I can go off for a swim, and and supports me in the swims that I've done, and supports me in those things. And
you've sold me on that one, because having the loving family to support you in what you want to do is, I think, an amazing opportunity, and you are very blessed.
Well, and I hope that we as children can continue that on and be that way, and be loving towards our partners and towards our children. There are people out there, people who it's difficult times, who have businesses where you need the support and love of family and friends. And
to get through.
Just to get through a day. I don't think, I sometimes don't understand that I walk in and there's loving family and we have a lot of fun and do whatever, and you get those experiences. And I remember the Youth Off the Streets function I went to after assembling English Channel, and it was a presentation night, and there was a girl or a boy that had come back to his house for the first time in 3 years, and I thought I might have my few moments with my parents, but I always walk back through the door every night. I thought,
and you're welcome.
And I'm welcome.
And
correct.
You're welcome.
And I'm welcome. And I thought, wow, that sort of proves that you might have your own dramas in the background and your few arguments along the times, but you're welcome in your house, and you walk through the door every night and you're welcomed. And I think that was a real good thing for me to understand that night. I think that's been good to be involved in charities such as the Rainbow Club, which provides one-on-one swimming tuition to disabled children, and to see for them to swim one lap is like the English Channel, and that's, or to actually even get their face in the water is outstanding. That's what you have to market by. I think is that James's dream is to swim the English Channel. This child's dream might be to get in and swim one lap of a pool, and that's the where the marker is. And I think that's an important thing to understand, these people with different disabilities, and what means a lot, and what can be something incredible.
We want to thank you very much for your time today,
and thank you very much.
Sharing your stories,
yep,
and your inspiration and motivation, and the focus that's necessary just to achieve so much more than what we were or weren't necessarily born to do.
Sure.
So thank you for that.
Thank you for having me.
We hope to talk to you again.
Absolutely.
Not a lot more to say after this episode, because even for me it's like, wow. Thanks, James.
Thank you.
Catch you all soon. Thanks, James, and thank you for your hot chocolate. It was really good. We appreciate hearing your story and hearing your humour too on some of the challenges that you faced. Some of those really obvious challenges. That's the Brew, and that's James's story. Don't forget to like us on Facebook and check out the videos, and follow our podcast on iTunes and review it, please, and share with your friends. Catch you soon.